Awesome. It's so great to be back here in our hometown for Appian, being here in the DC area. And we have some exciting topics to talk about. But first, I'd like to talk a little bit about you and where we are exactly in digital innovation and process architecture, thinking about how we've been applying technology. Not sure if you've been aware of this, but a lot of you probably are experts in the application of software technology as well as the application of business processes. This happens to be one of the most challenging positions, I think, because you not only have to navigate the complexity of software tech and the latest trends, but also navigating the politics of process. I'm not talking about the politics at the hill down the street, but the politics of getting people to work together and align together inside of an organization to achieve a common mission and common goal. It's one of the most difficult parts, and then you throw in a technology mix, it becomes even harder as well. So let's think about a little bit where we've been over the past several years around improvement of processes. A lot of this has been around isolated process automation investments. Things like robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, intelligent document processing, business rules, API integrations. These things have helped out to improve the efficiency of individual tasks. Looking at how processes exist together or as they are today, and looking at those inefficiencies and improving them over time. It's just been good. We've got a lot of efficiency gains out of this, but maybe not really achieve the full goal. Because if you think about this, we still have this maze of process complexity. We haven't really maybe fully understood how people actually work and how people interact with those processes and how we align to those common missions as well. Now, if you think about your own internal processes, think about how work gets complex, how can't really trace what's going on. Imagine how those look like to your external users, your citizens, your constituents who you're also trying to satisfy. When they approach your organization, they're not aware of the internal politics and the dynamics going on. They just want to interact with your organization as efficiently as possible. And oftentimes those processes that you have internally represent externally as complexity as well, decreasing the efficiency of meeting your mission goals for your organization as well. So we need to think about how we can align this better. Why Appian puts so much focus on case and data as far as an alignment concept. Thinking about realigning this, instead of thinking about process first and organization first, but think about the case structure and the data first. Maybe the case here is the customer, the constituent, and think about how do I align everything off of that core understanding of data, and then correlate processes on top of those. When I advise customers on their first implementations of Appian, the one recommendation I always make is to think about process as an ethereal layer on top of your case data and your enterprise data. So thinking about how those orchestrates and interact with each other and how I'm going to align processes to be supportive of the object rather than controlling the object itself. And that makes a better experience overall. So when we think about how we do this inside the Appian product, we bring this together in 4 key capabilities that we'll be covering here today. We heard a lot from Matt Calkins this morning around that concept of data fabric, and we're going to be diving deep into understanding exactly what that means. Talking then about the latest process automation innovations, how we're taking it beyond RPA and AI to align to larger orchestrations. Talking also about how we achieve total experience from your end user constituents all the way into your internal users and aligning them on common UIs and experiences. And finally, a little bit more information on process mining, how we can get optimization and insights into those investments to drive continuous process improvement. As always, the Appian product is based on a low-code mantra, meaning that every aspect of the Appian product is designed to be simple, intuitive, and approachable, giving you fast speed to value. But more importantly, it's a unified architecture to allow you to have fewer technology resources to achieve your common goals, as well as faster training and onboarding of your supporting resources. And then finally, as Matt talked earlier as well, always enterprise grade, high reliability, security, and scalability to meet those mission critical operational needs. Now let's dive deeper into that concept of data fabric. Now, maybe a lot of you haven't heard this word data fabric before. It's actually a pretty common word in modern data architectures. There's a lot of words floating out there like data mesh, data lakes, data warehouses. So let's understand exactly what a data fabric is. It is essentially an integrated layer of data that supports the design, deployment, and utilization of integrated and reusable data across your environments. So think about that, it's integrated data. It's the idea of taking multiple data sources from multiple locations and integrating it into a single composite model. Now, maybe you're telling yourself, well, don't I have this already? I have a data lake, I have a data warehouse. Isn't that the same thing? Well, it's a little bit different. Thinking about comparing a data warehouse to a data fabric. A data warehouse is about collecting, about aggregating data, maybe into a data lake or data warehouse environment for the purposes of analysis and event correlation. So I'm going to aggregate data into a single spot and then understand what's going on inside of that. Now, what a data fabric is designed for is really for that transactional fluid data. The data that's actually not just being integrated, but also being transacted upon. It's your living case data, the data that's powering your enterprise every day that's changing and fluidly operating. So a bit different versus data warehousing is designed to be, again, analytical, day late reporting. Data fabrics are designed to be that fluid operational data, but built from a composite of multiple sources. So exploring this further, many of Appian's customers come to us with a common situation like this, where they have existing investments. They have a SAP or Oracle EBS type environment with their ERP parts inventory. They have maybe some custom-built applications on relational databases, like here we have an installation library. And then we also have maybe Salesforce or ServiceNow or other systems. So these are my investments I currently have. And the most common request we get is I want to build in Appian a service request management application. So it's going to be a case management application to handle service requests as I fluidly build on top of this. I want to ingest those service requests, route them appropriately, and make sure they're followed up on time. But those service requests are not a separate isolated application. They're servicing parts that are in SAP. They're helping customers who are installed in certain locations who also have additional customer data in my Salesforce environment. So the data fabric starts by unifying this in a holistic data model, establishing those relationships of common elements between the systems, and building a composite single data model across the entire environment. So now I can see a single data model, which allows me to easily traverse that data fabric for building applications. If I need to, say, do a query showing me all service requests by customer region in Salesforce, I can easily do that across the data fabric to support application building. Now, one of the most unique features of the Appian products investment is also our ability to secure data through the data fabric. Let's say an example here. Let's say I want to say technicians can only see open repair requests for customers in their location. Thinking about that, what do I need to traverse here? Well, I have technicians, which are my Active Directory user management system, can see open repair requests, which is on the left-hand side there as far as the service request status, to customers in their location. So customer region is on the far right. So I need to join data across this data fabric. I need to combine information from my service request management application with my CRM system, traversing through my installation records on my Oracle Financials system as well. This is a unique feature of the Appian product, which allows you to seamlessly build this data fabric security rules with no coding whatsoever and enforce that to have row-level security in all the data inside of the data fabric as well. Now, pretty cool features, but it's even cooler when you actually see it in action. So I'm going to invite Kelsey to actually show us a little bit of what we can achieve. And specifically what she's going to show is the ability to accelerate your development by building powerful applications, simplifying integrations by reducing the number of API calls by 20 to 60%, and empowering those citizen developers to basically build new applications on top of that data fabric model. So Kelsey, teeing over to you.
Thanks, Malcolm. Today we're going to start by weaving our data fabric. So here we are in the record type designer. This is where we can define our data model, connect it with other data sources, and then also traverse that again to set security, create actions, and interfaces for our users. The first thing we have to do is tell Appian what our data model is. So not only what it is, but where it lives. And in this case, we've got a couple of options here. Your data could live in an Appian table. It could live in a process or another system. And so we've got a couple different options to choose from. I'm going to start from scratch today. So Appian will allow you to define the fields of this data right in this record type designer. We've got data sync enabled so that we're going to take advantage of all of the low-code capabilities of the Appian platform. And once I hit next, Appian will give us some initial fields. some common things that we know that almost every data type is going to have, like an ID or created by, created on. I could remove these fields. I could add new ones. We've got some quick adds here, so we could do start, description, assignee. And we can also use choice lists. So in this case, I might have a list of statuses. So we are building, for a grants management application, an audit record. So that audit record might be either not started, in progress, done, and Appian will go ahead and create an additional table to link with our audit record in order to store that status information and retrieve it when we need it. So we'll go ahead and create this choice list and move on. So I could continue adding fields here. We can always update it later. I'll press next. And on its own, this audit record is pretty one-dimensional. We want to start to tie it into our data fabric in order to take advantage of the capabilities that Appian has to offer. We are giving it context. So if you think about an audit in a grant application, it's probably related to a grant program. So if we click on our grant program record on the right-hand side, we can define what kind of relationship that is. So is it many to one, one to many? And in this case, Appian's guessing correctly. A grant program could have many audits. So I'll go ahead and add this. And we can do the same for award. And remember that these record types can be living in other systems. So these don't just have to be data stored in Appian. We can simply call out to Salesforce, call out to an ERP, and bring that data in to our data fabric. So again, we will hit next. And finally, I'll get a chance to review my data source, my data model, and all of the relationships. So now Appian behind the scenes is going to do all the legwork for me, creating the tables, associating them, building those relationships and those joins. And we could download the data script if we'd want, but I'll go ahead and close this out. And here we have it. But not only have we related this grant audit to a grant program or an application, we've also, by adding it to this data network, enriched all of our other entire applications across our environment, because these records have their own relationships. So you can see here when I've expanded to view the additional relationships that the record has, we're also pointing to a document in SharePoint. We're pointing to contacts that we have in Salesforce, to financial data we have in Oracle Financials. And I can access this through my audit type with just a few clicks. So now that we have our data model, we probably want our users to interact with it. So Appian will help us with that. It will go ahead and auto-generate a list, view, search, and user filters, and also the views and headers for that particular audit. So if I want a screen with all of my audit data right there, I can simply generate a record view from here. And this will give me a few options, because again, not only do we have our audit, but we have its related data. So I can choose to display its award data, its grant program data. Any related record can show up in this audit record. So we'll go ahead and auto-generate this. Again, Appian will, behind the scenes, create the interface, create the rules, hook everything up, and take care of it for me. The next thing we'll do is create an action, because we want to be able to create new audits. So in this case, we will go ahead and use another Appian auto-generator for generating a record action. And you'll see we've got a couple options. We'll go ahead and create. And this will create all of the process models, all of these rules, in order to create a new audit and enter it into the system. We can always come back and use the power of the platform to edit these objects individually later and build more upon them and make them even more powerful. So our record action was created. We'll save those changes and hop into the user environment. So again, Appian's taken all of this data that it has and created a nice list for our users to be able to search, filter. You'll see we also have those related records here. We've got filters that were auto-generated for us. And then we can also add our new audit. So I'll just add an audit field. I'll assign it to myself. Make sure I can type my new last name correctly. And then we'll give it an award and a status. OK. So once I submit this, we'll go and it will refresh the database. It will store everything. And here we have our audit on the front end. And this list will grow. And I can click in and see that summary view that we just generated. So here's that grant audit. Here's the related record data. And we can take it back to the low-code interface designer and change it around, make it look how we want to. But this is a great head start. And it's done so much behind the scenes to make this happen. But I don't want every user to be able to see every audit. And I definitely don't want Malcolm to be able to see any of these audits. So let's go back to our record type designer and configure some security. Security is notoriously complex, tedious, and it's absolutely essential to government applications. So I'm sure everyone in here has been in a meeting talking about security at some point. And we're going to make it super easy, again, to traverse your data fabric and create all of those security rules that you might need. And once we do this, it will take effect across your entire environment. So applications that use this audit record will also adhere to the security rules we set up because it is done right here, directly related to the audit record. So we'll start out by saying I have an auditors group, and I want everyone in the audit group to see it. So I'll create that and add another rule. We also might want to put some conditional logic in here. So for example, if I have audit coordinators who are scheduling my audits, I want to give them the visibility to schedule them, and only when they're in that not started status. So we can take the status, we can give it a value, and we'll say that value is the first in our list, so our one not started status, and we can hit create. Now, another thing about security that can take a lot of time and effort and headaches is testing. So if I'm testing security, I might have to go log into all of those interfaces. I might have to create different test scripts in order to run them and then update them constantly as our security rules change. Well, we're going to take away all of that need because we give you the ability to test the data directly in the record type. So if I want to make sure that Malcolm cannot see anything, we will select him and hit test. And you can test groups. You can use this to make sure that all of your rules are evaluating correctly. And that's correct. He can't see anything except what is on the screen. So, and then I will check myself quickly. And we will see that I can see the audit that I entered earlier. And I can even click to preview and see what that data looks like. So far, to summarize, we've taken you through creating a new record, relating it to other like records, creating the user experience and the way that users are going to interact with that data, and then securing that across our data fabric. So Malcolm, back to you.
Cool, thank you, Kelsey. And of course, that was a live demo going from scratch, integrating it with other external data sources, building the workflows and UIs right there live and done in under 10 minutes. Congratulations, that's awesome, Kelsey. But let's now challenge Kelsey in another area. Because the value promise is also to achieve greater automation of these activities. And of course, there's a lot of things that go into this. As I mentioned before, robotic process automation, IDP, API integrations, these are all things that help facilitate the greater efficiency of those business processes. Specifically, what Appian's been introducing over the past couple of years is a low-code integrated robotic process automation capability. This allows you to now apply robotic process automation directly inside the tool with no third-party tool, and also use those same low-code paradigms with no Java coding or complex coding to quickly create those robotic automations. Now, the easiest way to capture robotic process automation, though, is not to script it out, even that you saw there, but to record it. RPA is there to simply record what humans do on desktop computers and then replay that with greater efficiency in a robotic fashion. So to capture that, we introduced the RPA recorder. The RPA recorder allows you to simply record the clicks that go on a screen, automatically generate the robotic process, and then execute that for automation across your entire enterprise. In addition, Appian's been introducing native intelligent document processing. This allows you to accomplish two things: the classification of unstructured documents and the extraction of content from those documents. So classification simply means that I might receive purchase orders, vendor information, personal identity information. I might be receiving this in one ingestion area. I need to pay people to understand what documents are. This is a purchase request, this is an invoice record, routed to the appropriate person. Through use of native artificial intelligence in Appian, you can now automate this activity by automatically telling you what the documents are through classification. After you ingest those content, you can then do the extraction. Well, now that I have a purchase request information, I need to then extract the purchase order number, the vendor information, the amount, and put that into my backend database. Again, this can be entirely automated using native artificial intelligence in the Appian product. And of course, this allows you to integrate this to a larger Appian platform to achieve straight-through processing. And when the artificial intelligence is not confident, it can kick into a human operator to then retrain and make those AI services smarter and smarter as you process more documents. In addition, we've also introduced no-code API integration. Now, the most common thing I tell people about using robotic process automation is don't use robotic process automation when you have a good API. APIs are the most efficient way to integrate systems together into a single workflow process. And to make that even easier, we've introduced no-code API integration to allow you to easily browse a library of connected systems, select those, and then with no understanding of JSON or complex coding, integrate those actions into your larger workflow. But the goal here is to elevate us beyond these individual task automations and bring it together in holistic process orchestrations. How can I easily go from RPA to AI to workflow humans, to API integrations, and manage that as an end-to-end process to gain that better visibility about what's going on in the complete process automation? So next challenge to Kelsey to demonstrate again live for us a little bit of building these capabilities in the Appian product.
Thanks, Malcolm. We'll accept that challenge. So I'm going to pull up our process modeler, and no, this is not, and we'll wait till the screen comes up. No, this is not Malcolm's marketing slide. This is the newly designed process modeler, the same one you all know and love, which hopefully everyone knows and loves it. And it just has a new design with matching to our new brand. So we'll go ahead and take a look at these different swim lanes. We've got a number of different actors taking place in this process. We've got people, we've got bots, we've got artificial intelligence, and we've got APIs, integrations. So what we'll do is we'll start out in robotic process automation. I'll show you what it's like to build a bot. So clicking here into my RPA designer, it's just like every other low-code designer in Appian. You can see that there's a palette on the left-hand side, variables on the right, and I can click in and configure. Now, what's a little bit different about this is that I don't have to drag and drop. Instead, I can record new things because a bot is essentially doing what a human would do. So if we drag on a new action group here, and I select my recording, we can go ahead and select our resource. This is going to run on my computer. And the bot will go ahead and open up my browser. So it's opened up a recorder as well as my notes. And it will go ahead and let me select an application. So we've got Chrome, Firefox, Edge, but also any application that's on the desktop itself. We can search and expand more. I'll choose Edge. So we're going into our browser, and the robot is able to record everything that's on the screen. So in this case, I'll go to the website fappis.gov, type that in, and this is the Federal Awardee Performance and Integrity Information System. So this is where, when I interact with this site, the bot will be able to capture any actions that I'm taking, whether it's checking to see if elements are there, whether it's capturing attributes and saving them into variables, or searching for something and waiting for a result. We can go ahead and search Appian Corporation, and notice on the right-hand side that our recorder is grabbing that value. So once we hit search, the robot now knows that he's supposed to click the search button, and we've got the results. So we could do something like capture the UEID or the cage code and put that into our process. So once we're done, we'll hit done and add a group and have it send back to our process RPA designer, where it will automatically put all of those different steps in order for us. So you can see we opened the browser, we updated a value, we did some clicks, and there was everything that the robot did. And now we can click and configure to set up things like storing it in a variable that we're going to pass to a process model that could write to an API. All of this is orchestrated in the process modeler, and we've just created a new bot. So in this case, I'm going to delete that and save it, because we're going to run one that already exists. Last year, we built one from scratch, and we'll go ahead and type in Appian Corporation, again, like our search. And here, we're going to hit test, and now the bot's going to run. So this should go through the same exact activities that we just went through when I did the recording. So it's opening up fappis.gov. It's going to start to search in the entity name text box. It'll put in Appian Corporation. And then it'll hit search, and we'll come up with the results. Now from here, we could loop through the results. We could save this into a document. There's so much that we can do, all because this works hand in hand with the process modeler, and we can add those steps in. So coming back to our process model, let's talk about artificial intelligence. Again, this is at the core of where we're orchestrating our process automation, and one of the key elements is document extraction. The government has so many paper documents floating around. I have personally configured many documents in intelligent document processing to see how that would extract and show up. So we're going to see that today. Here is a retirement application for federal employees, and everyone has to fill this out. It's all done via paper. And what Appian's done is it's been able to ingest the document, classify it, and then go through and extract the individual variables, things like the name, the address, and then put unstructured data into structured data. So on the left-hand side, you can see here that we've got all those values. And if it missed something, the machine learning model can learn from a human's reconciliation. So we'll go ahead and grab the social security number. And you can see I selected it in pink on the screen. And then we'll populate it where the social security number is. So now the next time that intelligent document processing runs this application through it, it will go ahead and have that extracted. But this is so much easier than hand typing every one of these fields into some sort of spreadsheet or legacy database. This is where we're saving users so much time and making sure that it's solid and there are no errors. So we'll come back to our process model here, and the last thing we're going to talk about is integrations. So the power isn't just in a bot or just in intelligent document processing. It's about combining all of these things together. And here we're going to use the information that we extracted in an integration. So Now that we've confirmed that all the document information was captured correctly, we have a view into our existing systems. Because Appian has connected to that existing system, it might be an HR system, and pulled that information and compared the two values. And it's noticed a data conflict. So the address doesn't match, and we need to do something about that because the annuity checks aren't going to go to this retiree if we have the wrong address. So we're able to add that to our case log and continue on reviewing applications. And I didn't have to go and type in this applicant's name into some system and then find this information out myself. So far we've seen the process modeler, robotic process automation, intelligent document processing and artificial intelligence, and integrations. Malcolm,
cool.
Back to you.
Thank you, Kelsey. So next challenge then, once we have the data fabric defined, the process automation is complete, now we need to extend it into our external users and extend it into our total experience concepts. Now what Appian tries to achieve in this is allowing you to have the tools you need to deliver with speed and flexibility to represent your brand and to build many interfaces you need to support your digital transformation goals. We also allow you to deliver this in a multi-experience format, allowing you to build once and have it automatically run on the latest Android and iOS devices, and also with offline operation. And then finally, again, enterprise grade, building interfaces that are not penetratable using cross-site scripting attacks and database injection attacks, having secure web architecture that gives you the confidence that you're going to build external interfaces as well as internal interfaces that are highly secure and reliable. So we do this through a number of key tools, like the Appian Interface Designer, which Kelsey's going to be challenged to show again here in a minute, as well as that write once, runtime architecture for building things once and then having it run on the iPads, iPhones, and Android devices. And of course, to facilitate you, we have a new public website called design.appian.com. Now, getting inspiration and trying to figure out what a good UX is often difficult. The beauty's in the eye of the beholder, as they say. So to help you guide through that, there's a lot of inspirational content on design.appian.com to give you ideas that you can actually copy and paste directly inside your Appian installation to accelerate your digital goals. And finally, we're happy to introduce the latest feature of Appian, which is that new front door to your applications, Appian Portals. It's designed specifically for those no login, anonymous users, extending interfaces to your constituents and citizens and customers, as well as built in an architecture designed for elastic cloud scale and is isolated microservice architecture to achieve whatever scale goals you have. One great example of this is a recent go-live implementation with the American Association of Retired Persons. This is a fantastic organization that represents over 38 million retired people over the age of 50 throughout the entire United States. And one of their challenges was to make sure that they're properly protecting their constituents against fraud that we've all probably seen out there. Again, the scammers who are targeting the elderly population around this. Now, the Appian portal environment here was allow them to quickly build an interface that allows them to extend to a fraud victim support volunteer application that beautifully represents the AARP brand as well as securely delivers the dynamic experience they needed to register new volunteers. But to see this in action, I'm going to pass it over to Kelsey to see an actual demo of this building and deploying live.
Okay, so at this point, we're going to get a little bit silly. I thought we'd have some fun, and our example is the Ministry of Silly Walks. So if anyone here has seen the Monty Python skit from the 1970s, the Ministry of Silly Walks is a program in the UK government in which you can apply for grants to better your silly walk. So the better your silly walk is, the better chance you'll get to get funding from the UK. Now, of course, this is a knock on government bureaucracy, which we don't have here. That's why we're using the UK example. But I thought it would be a great portal because we want end users, anonymous users, to be able to interact with Appian at this point when they're just showing interest in the grant program or when they're applying for it initially. So what we're looking at here is the Interface Designer. And we've taken actually a pattern from that design playbook that Malcolm was mentioning earlier. I highly recommend it. And I altered it a little bit to work with our grant application. So you can see that we've got a frozen bar at the top. We can test this to make sure it's responsive. And we've got all of that drag and drop capability of the Appian Interface Designer. But here's the difference. Normally, to get this to show up on an anonymous public website, you would have to code it. You would have to use JavaScript, HTML, CSS. You would have to have those resources or maybe go with a different platform. So here's a whole other application that your agency has to maintain on top of their Appian application. Well, not anymore. And that's what Appian Portals has solved. So I didn't have to do any of that coding. All I have done here is created my interface just like every other Appian interface, and we can publish it in its own website. So here we'll click over to the Appian Portal Designer, and this is where we've got the Ministry of Silly Walks portal, and we can see a preview of it here in the center, set up some configurations, branding, and then at the top here we can publish. So we can publish, unpublish, republish, and I'll also call out, we can make these progressive web applications just by clicking a button. So by checking this box to turn on the progressive web application, your users will get the full experience of a native mobile application with just going to the website. So let's take a look at that in action. First, we'll go ahead and open up the portal, check it out, see it in the browser. Again, this is responsive, so as I move it around on the screen, it's going to adjust just like our beautiful front-facing government websites that we have today. It's also web accessible, so we've got all of the accessibility standards that your websites require. And if I come here to my phone, we'll go ahead and apply for our silly walk. So we'll get started. We'll give the applicant a name, and I'll go ahead and use the phone version of this. So I've actually downloaded this as an app. We've got the ability to add to home screen here. So this adds that page as a quick reference on my phone. So we'll go ahead and open that up. And here we go, walk silly. We'll get started. We can give our name. And you can see I just used the recording feature. So we've used our voice recorder on our phone in order to do this. And I can also describe my silly walk. Now, of course, with this application for this particular grant, we do need a demonstration. So, Malcolm? Silly walk?
I'm not nearly as acrobatic as John Cleese.
OK, well, maybe Ben Allen. But later, if you can show me your silly walks, happy to see them. And if you haven't seen the Monty Python sketch, I highly recommend going to YouTube for it. So thank you. And Malcolm, back to you.
Cool. Thanks, Kelsey. So to close out, to talk a little bit about process mining. Now, process mining is the newest technology, also apt to Appian Stack. But to maybe better understand this, let's take a historical context of how this has applied value in the past, taking it back maybe 200 years ago to the age of commercial shipping. Now, if you weren't aware, back in the early 1800s, commercial shipping was really just by gut feel, how a captain felt the wind was going. You can almost have a correlation to how many of our processes go. I just feel like this is the next email to send or the next thing. Is often how captains navigated ships 200 years ago. But thanks to a US Navy lieutenant, Matthew Fontaine Maury, who actually worked here just down the street at the US Naval Observatory, in the mid-1800s, he had the idea of actually aggregating log files from all the commercial shipping across the world, analyzing those log files, and for the first time discovering the currents of the ocean. Now, what this did is it basically helped you define how the water actually flows across the world. Now, how actually, of course, thinking about that, how processes actually work inside our enterprise. What this resulted in was dramatic gains in efficiency. Moving from New York to San Francisco, which used to have to go around the southern part of South America, took 183 days, reduced down to 135 days. Moving from Great Britain down to Australia was reduced to 128 days to 97 days. This not only led to amazing gains in commercial shipping across the entire world, but also led to almost the rise of colonial empires that we see today. That those gains led to the successes of populating Australia and expanding across the entire continent of America we have here today. So how we think about this, though, is that value of analyzing logs can be a great value to thinking about how you operate your own business organization. Taking those data logs that we had 200 years ago in the physical logs and looking at the data logs we have today, the individual footprints of our interactions on these enterprise systems. What these are basically these footprints that trace what's going on. You can ask yourself, can you really trace your processes? If we think about how we operate today, we often still operate in a very cumbersome, inefficient, and untraceable manner. And how often do I hear that the system that Appian's replacing is most commonly spreadsheets and email? Things that really operate almost still the modern age of digital business today, of that gut feel of people routing things to who they think is appropriate to do the next action. Appian Process Mining is specifically designed to trace those digital footprints. Not only the footprints that are inside your Appian environment, but also using that data fabric to connect to other environments, Oracle, Microsoft Dynamics, doing SAP, Workday, Salesforce, looking at all those trace files and aggregating them to that digital footprint, and then tracing those footprints to see what actually occurs, and then finally visualizing those footprints into an actual process model. This allows you to then take those digital logs and then see exactly how work actually gets done and the amount of time it takes in each step, and also analyze all the variance that you have across all those interactions. Now, Appian also released a number of complementary features such as comparing and monitoring with process scorecards. You can essentially set a benchmark for your organization, say this is how I expect, say, federal acquisition to occur, and then compare it to how it actually occurs by looking at those digital footprints. Or as Matt mentioned earlier, a new beta interface that we have is to predict and monitor your savings scorecards, to give predictions of how much cost savings I hope to achieve, then look at the actual performance and predicting your goals of actually achieving those to your overall business outcome goals. So overall, what we're trying to deliver here is a platform that, of course, allows you in process mining, analyze the performance of your real business operations, enforce compliance to ensure you're meeting your business goals as expected, and get the insights you need to facilitate that continuous optimization lifecycle to understand what's really going on in your processes and then going back to that design philosophy. Which is our goal, is to provide that seamless experience to go from low-code design, building those workflows and data fabric model, to the key automation technologies to gain those individual efficiencies across your tasks, through the insights to understand what's going on across the enterprise that lead to greater design, supported by an integrated suite solution with embedded all those core technologies. Now, what I'd like to do, though, is pass it off to the next gentleman, Mr. Benjamin Allen, who is our Senior Director of Government Acquisition Solutions. Now, Ben Allen's going to come show a little bit how this is represented in our go-to-market solution for acquisition management for federal customers. So, Ben, welcome to stage.
Thank you. How many of you thought I was going to silly walk out here? I really appreciate Kelsey mentioning that. I was backstage. It's like, oh, she just threw me under the bus there. Maybe later. We'll see how it goes.
Good.
So thank you. My name is Ben Allen. I've been at Appian for 20 years, and of those 20, I spent about 17 working in the acquisition community. I was actually introducing myself to someone earlier in the event, and I said, Appian, 20 years, acquisition. And they said, Ben, why did you stop at A? There's so much more of the alphabet for you to explore. I said, I don't know. The heart wants what the heart wants. So I am very passionate about the acquisition community. I'm very passionate about the product, and that's why I was so excited when Malcolm and Kelsey were showing some of those new product features today, because I view them through the acquisition lens. I wanted to pop out when we were talking about data fabric and be like, that's your contract. That's the integration with the finance system. That's your vendor database. That's SAM. That's your cleanse. That's integration with your invoicing system, your receiving, and your acceptance. So you can view all of that data through one single pane of glass. So the data fabric is going to be the backbone of our solutions, the backbones of the solutions that you've built for the acquisition process. Process automation. There's so many great examples of process automation for acquisition. It's review flows, it's document generation, it's suggesting best-in-class contract vehicles. The list goes on and on. We even showed one with RPA, with FAPIS. So we've already shown one of them already related to acquisition. So many great examples. Total experience, Matt mentioned earlier our new product vendor management. Very excited about this because it brings in another process participant into the acquisition process. And we're doing that with the Appian portals. And we're also allowing the vendors to access the system the way they want to, through their mobile phone, their iPhone, their iPad, their Android device, or through their desktop. And then finally, process mining. When process mining was first introduced, the first thing I thought of was procurement action lead time, or your total acquisition lead time. It seems perfect for that. The ability to overlay process mining on all of your acquisition systems and gain that insight about where there are bottlenecks in your system, where you can make improvements, and then observe it over time and see how those improvements have taken place. So, as you can see, I'm very excited about these new product features, very excited to incorporate them into our acquisition products. Now, what I'd like to do is quickly take a step back and talk about what we hear from some of our acquisition customers. What are they looking to do with these solutions, with the applications that they're building on Appian? The first is they want to automate those manual processes. No surprise there. What we hear over and over is acquisition professionals feel like they spend most of their time clerking data. They're not being that business advisor that they want to be. We also hear about needing to increase collaboration. There are a lot of process participants in the acquisition process. It's not just contracting. It's not just vendors. It's legal, it's policy, competition advocates. All of these users need to come together in a single system because when that work leaves the system, you can't monitor it, you can't automate it, and it introduces inefficiencies. Same thing with systems. A lot of systems out there. And when you can't automate those systems and connect to them and push and pull that data in a seamless fashion, you're introducing more inefficiencies. We also hear that organizations want to comply with regulations. No surprise there, and the regulations are huge. They're easily that thick in the federal government. State and local, they have a good set of diverse regulations as well. And when you put that into the process, you can help both automate that, but bring your acquisition staff into better compliance because they don't have to think about it as much. It's built into the process. It also gives you the ability to bake in best practices. And as those regulations and best practices change, you can accommodate that. You can make changes to your process, and you can seamlessly change your acquisition program to match the new thinking and how to better acquire goods and services. With a lot of those acquisition regulations, we know it's document heavy. There's not too much we can do about the document heavy nature of it other than assist you, provide you with the right documents at the right time, provide you with those templates, help you auto-populate them so you're not doing that work manually. And then finally, reduce risk. We always want to reduce risk. This could be delivery risk, it could be contract risk. There's a lot of risk involved with acquisition, and when you put it in a system, you're better able to manage it and monitor it and make changes when you need to. When we talk about legacy government environments, we talk to these customers, often what they tell us about is, well, we have our typical users of these applications. Most of it's contracting. We do have some program office, and we certainly have vendors as well. The process, not surprising, requirement, solicitation, award, post-award. And then they have certain systems that we pretty much see consistently. There's a contract writing system. There's a finance system it's connecting to make sure you have those dollars to actually do the procurements. Invoicing, which is sometimes part of finance. And then there's federal systems or state systems that they're going to need to integrate with, and then usually a couple homegrown systems as well. This is the environment they describe to us. But when we talk to them in a little bit more detail about how the work gets done, this is more of what we see. We see that contract writing system, we see that finance system or invoice system in the middle. We see lots of work around the edges. Early in the process, we see program offices that are creating their requirements on shared drives or SharePoint or Access databases. They're emailing documents back and forth. They're having trouble finding the right document. They're manually creating things. Sometimes they're copying things from previous requirements and passing that forward in the requirements package. It's a bit of a mess. And we also hear from contracting the difficulty of that. You're receiving requirements packages and they're not complete. They're hard to take action on. They're hard to deliver that good or service in the timeline that's being requested because you don't have the data that you need. And then on the other end, and sometimes in the middle as well, we're seeing a lot of award processes that are being manually managed. Again, Excel sheets, email. We're not seeing assistance from the contract writing system or the finance system. What we're seeing in those systems is they're laser focused on creating that document, but they're not really helping you automate processes and track processes and bring more process participants into the equation. So what we've tried to do with the acquisition solutions that we've released is provide that capability to be able to have a much broader end-to-end acquisition view, to start earlier in the process. And I'll go through these briefly. This is the same slide that Matt showed earlier. But requirements management, we created this solution to help the program office to demystify that process, to show them the exact steps they need to go through, to provide them with the documents that they need, to auto-populate those documents, to collaborate with contracting, ultimately get a much more solid requirements package so you can march forward with that acquisition. With award management, we went to the other side of the equation, had a requirement, now I have a contract. But oftentimes those contracts were simply just a document. And that static document, it wasn't alerting you to period of performance dates. It wasn't telling you when an option was about to expire. It wasn't saying, hey, you need to obligate more money. You're about to run out of money. Your vendor is going to stop work. So we created a system that would take that data and proactively alert you, and also give you an environment to create your processes to help you onboard new contractors, handle a dispute, do your option exercise process, all within the application. Source selection was our next solution. We wanted to tackle vendor proposals and evaluating those proposals, bringing your evaluators into the system, allowing you to assign proposals against factors and sub-factors out to your evaluators, monitor the entire process, take all of their evaluations into the system, synthesize that, let you do your consensus ranking process within the system, and then create your source selection documents and your decision memos, have those approved, and move forward with your award. Clause automation, easily the one that we received the most feedback from customers when we talked to. The current clause process is very difficult. It's very time consuming. It's often quite manual. Sometimes if it's not, they're using old templates or they're just copying old clauses from other contracts, and we see that from time to time. We believe there's a much better and a more modern approach that embraces automation, and that's integrating with systems like acquisition.gov, bringing in all the latest clauses, bringing in the FAR logic and the FAR matrix, asking users questions about their acquisition, guided questions that steps you through rules that are going to be applied to the clause set, so you have a very small, structured set of clauses at the end of the process that you can be confident in, and then takes you through the process of finishing those. If you have fill-ins, it's going to alert you to that. If a clause updates while you've been working on it, it's going to alert you of that, and you can make those updates. And then finally, vendor management, our newest solution. This solution is meant to bring the vendors into the process. As Matt mentioned, so often they've been using 25-year-old technology. They've mostly had communication via email. We want an environment where you can interact with your vendors at the early market research stage, at your opportunity and your solicitation phase, and also your award phase. So they can come into the system, they can get documents, they can provide documents back, and it can all be a structured interaction. So Kelsey's going to show vendor management. I'm very excited about it because we're going to get to show you some of the total experience. We're going to show portal, we're going to show mobile. Just keep nodding to make sure I haven't missed anything. We've got data fabric as well.
Can't forget that.
And we're also going to show some AI, some automation via AI. This is the one that I'm most excited about because we had an engineer come to us and say, how can we incorporate more AI into your solutions? Like, oh, that's music to my ears. If it wasn't a virtual meeting, I would have hugged him. And we came up with a scenario to help automate the Q&A process, which Kelsey will show you, that I think is really innovative and can save contracting folks a lot of time. So over to you, Kelsey.
Awesome, thank you, Ben. So in vendor management, we've got a couple different access points. We're starting out here in our Appian portal as an anonymous user, and I can do a couple things. I can either register, log in, or I can even see all public opportunities, because not all government opportunities are a secret. Actually, most of them are public knowledge. They encourage vendors to apply, encourage competition, and so we want to make that experience a joy to use. So we've got the ability to look across all of these public opportunities. We can click into one, say the tech services RFP, and as an anonymous user or a vendor, I want to see if I meet these requirements, if this would be a good opportunity for me to pursue. So we've got all of those details here that come from vendor management, from the internal application that contracting will use. And then they're posted here publicly, again using the rules of our data fabric to provide security and make sure that they're only seeing what they are allowed to see. Now, Ben mentioned the question and answer process. So we've got some notices in here. This is happening. I would like to take a moment to ask for some audience participation. I know it's at the end of the presentation, but please raise your hand if you've ever been involved with the Q&A process, whether it's attending a meeting for a Q&A, drafting a question, answering a question, writing a question, submitting a question, go ahead and raise your hand. I thought so. Okay, so I've done it too, and Ben has done it his share of times, so this is a painful process. And usually these questions, the question answer period comes at untimely times when it's a holiday weekend. And because the government is working to get all of this stuff together, they have got so much on their plate in order to put this out to the public, and all of a sudden the public has a very quick turnaround to decide whether they want to pursue it, ask their questions, get the answers they need, and spend probably a lot of money responding to that proposal. So let's say it hits, it's the weekend, I am with my family, and I want to check my questions. Make sure that the person who submitted them, and we've got that confirmation, because that can be a nerve-wracking moment. So at this point, I want to get on my mobile phone, and here we're logged in as a vendor who has authenticated access into Appian because they've registered through our portal, and they can see their opportunities. They can see when things are due, when alerts come out, when new notices are posted by the government. So they've got the power of Appian Vendor Management at their fingertips, and they can access it however they'd like to. So here we've got that same RFP, and I've identified as interested, and I want to submit some questions. So we'll go ahead and go back to our desktop, or actually I'll start here. We will click on the questions tab here, and I can see, yes, my coworker submitted the questions. They've been received, here they are, I can make sure they're all right, and this is what the government is going to see. So we've submitted 16 questions. I can add a question, and we could go through that process. These could have been uploaded from a document and parsed out from Excel. If you've got a question and answer template, we can take all that data out automatically, put it into this data fabric. And now we want to go in as the contracting officer. So from the vendor perspective, we've submitted our questions, we're good to go, and the government, not good to go yet. They still have a lot of work on their plate because they have tons and tons of vendors responding to these question and answer periods with questions. So we're going to have them go into their view, which again, based on that security, gives them all the opportunities that they're working on. And if they click into that same opportunity, the Tech Services RFP, they again have the question tab. But their tab's a little bit different because they have every single question that has been submitted. And they're all thrown together. And this is even sometimes better than the view they get today, because the view they get today might be in multiple spreadsheets that they're copying into one master document and then shopping around, sending an email to try to get answers. So we've put all of those right in Appian so you can see them. But there are 150 questions, each from different vendors. Could be similar types of questions. And so what our engineering team has done is created this innovation where we can group like questions and even duplicate questions together and make it easily digestible for our contracting officer. So if we go over to our little wizard guy over here, we can hit group, and this is going to use a machine learning model to automatically categorize these questions, group them together, and present the user with a simplified view of the questions regardless of what vendor they come from. So you can see we've got a mix, vendor 1, vendor 7, vendor 3. We can remove them from these buckets if we'd like, and the algorithm will automatically resort to give you a new group that might fit into. And not only can we group these together, but we can create workflows off of them. So the person who is managing the questions at this point in time is probably not the one with all the answers. I'm sure they've responded and read tons of answers before, but maybe they don't have all of them. And so we want to be able to assign these out, especially in their groups, to our SMEs, to the tech team, to the legal team, and they can provide the answers. So something we can also do is auto-assign to the correct groups based on the group that we've discovered from the AI model. So once we do that, if I want to assign something, I can. Let's go ahead and pick a group. And then for the answer, we'll just type in the answer here. And we can also export this to a PDF. So all of that to say, government still we love our documents, right? Everything has to be in a document. So I'm going to go ahead and click to export this to PDF, and it's ready to go, ready to ship for the vendors. So hopefully this inspires you. Go talk to our GAM booth. Our engineers are there. They want to hear your feedback. They want you to try this out. And pass it back to Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Kelsey. I'll just wrap up really quickly because I'm afraid we're going to get played off because we went a little bit late. I love that demonstration. I think AI here has the possibility of saving users a lot of time. I call it the do magic button. I just love every time it presses, then it refreshes the screen. I embrace it with childlike glee. If you would like to also play around with it, we'll be over in the kiosk, in the acquisition kiosk. We'd love to show you the other acquisition solutions as well. Thank you very much. Hope to see you out there.